What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the Very Blessed podcast. My name is Derek, and thank you for clicking on the video. Today, I want to talk about the origins of Christmas. And I apologize that me and the wife haven't been on in a while, but as you can see, there's some slightly new surroundings here, and that's because I have moved recently across town, so it's taken some time to get everything set up, but we are back with a new episode today. The wife is in Wisconsin, so I am rolling solo today on this Origins of Christmas episode. But once again, thanks for clicking in, and let's just jump right into it. So, the origins of Christmas, it starts way back in the 4th century. It's a Roman Catholic holiday started by Pope Julius I. And essentially, it was in response to other winter holidays that were going on in the area. Now, there's several of these winter holidays that are much older than Christmas that were around. And again, this was in response to those. A couple of these, name-wise, are the Sol Invictus, which is the unconquered sun holiday. There was also Yule, which is where we get like tree decorating from and whatnot. But the one that was very popular, and that dates all the way back to the 1st century, is Saturnalia. So Saturnalia was a popular winter holiday. And essentially, the concept isn't really that bad. So slave owners that owned slaves would actually reverse roles for several days. And they would get gifts for their slaves, and also they would serve their slaves. Now, the biggest issue with this holiday is because it was for the god of Saturn, so amongst Christianity and whatnot. But again, the concept of kind of giving back and the role reversal is actually not too bad. So a lot of the concepts here, as we got further and further along, kind of just became part of Christmas. So again, initially, Christmas was not about gifts, and it wasn't about anything rather than Christ. So the word Christmas is Christ mas. So more Christ is actually the whole reason behind the original concept of Christmas. Because there were so many of these winter festivals going on, the Pope saw an opportunity for us to be able to celebrate in the winter months Christ. So that's the whole reason of the concept. It's not necessarily about the birth day of Jesus. And most scholars will agree when you look back at the biblical text or even the historical text, that it's not likely that the birth of Jesus was actually on December 25th. As a matter of fact, it's more likely that it was in a different season completely. So again, it's not really about the actual birth date, but the birth of Jesus and what that signified. And that can be actually proven even more so in the conception of Christmas in the United States. So as most of us know, the U.S. became a nation in 1776, but a terrible event happened a little less than 100 years later, and that was the Civil War. The Civil War put our North and South side against one another and really tore the nation apart. And so at the end of the Civil War, when President Grant gets into office, he wanted to find a way to unite people. He wanted to find a way to bring people together and to get people to spend more time with not just family, but with friends, and to encourage faith and to encourage a brighter outlook. So Christmas was actually declared a national holiday in 1870 as a way to unify the nation. So rather interesting that it was this practice of Christmas that became that. Prior to that, for a long period of time, Christmas was actually outlawed in the United States. It was our European immigrants that brought it over, specifically Germans that brought over the customs of Santa Claus and of a Christmas tree and tree decorations. So again, for a very long period of time, that was outlawed. But President Grant saw a very clear and a very good reason to bring Christmas as a national holiday because it was a way to unite people. Not just because of the gift giving and not just because of the tree and because of Santa Claus, but he specifically made it a point to make sure that the name stayed Christmas because of the faith element that it brought because of Christ. Now, a common misconception that we have with this is that a lot of people will refer to Christmas as Xmas in order to take Christ out of the holiday. A lot of people will say that you put Xmas in there because you're putting an X in there to put an X through Christ. But that's actually not the case. You see, in Greek, X actually means CHI, which is the three letters of Christ. So even when you're saying Xmas, you're still referring to Christ. So because of this, it was just a way to shorten the word, but it still has meaning and it still means Christ. Another misconception I think that we have, especially more so talking to believers and religious institutions now, is that Christmas is really more so about the birth of Jesus. So we've already established that it's not about the birth date, but some religious entities will still say that it's about the birth of Christ. So they'll tell the story of how he was born to a virgin, how he came to be in a manger, and how the three wise men came and visited him, and all of these feel-good stories and whatnot. And don't get me wrong, those are important stories. They're biblical stories. But if we only talk about that, we're kind of missing the point a little bit. The true meaning behind Christmas and the whole reason as to why we celebrate it is because of the two words, Christmas, more Christ. So the ideal behind making Christmas a national holiday in 1870 was for people to be more like Christ. Now, whether you're a believer or whether you're a non-believer, one thing that we have pretty much been able to agree on from a historical standpoint, so whether we're talking about biblical Jesus or historical Jesus, is that Jesus taught equality. Jesus taught mercy. Jesus taught inclusion. Jesus taught people how to live amongst one another, to forgive one another, how to love one another. So when we say more Christ, what we're actually saying is that we should live more Christ-like, which means we should love one another, which means we should include each other, that we shouldn't hold prejudices, that we should give amongst one another. So in what has turned into a holiday of gift giving and a holiday where, what did I get versus what did they get in this comparison or this comparative world that we live in, the true meaning behind Christmas is to show those characteristics of Jesus, to be more like Jesus, the person. And if we can do that and we can demonstrate those values and those things that he demonstrated while he was here on earth, it makes it to where we live a life that is more peaceful, a life that we are loving one another instead of hating one another. And that's what President Grant was trying to get across. He was trying to get across that hope, that faith, that it didn't matter anymore. The war was over. It didn't matter anymore about North versus South. This was about healing. This was about us coming together as a nation and learning more about one another. And in order to do that, he found that the best figure, the most symbolic figure to do that would be Christ, because Christ taught all of these things. So this holiday season, I really hope that you're able to demonstrate something that would show kindness, goodness, mercy, equality, demonstrating something that would inspire others, that would lift others up when they're in these situations where too many times this time of year puts them in, which is depression and which is loneliness. A lot of us have lost family members, and we've lost friends, and we've lost people in our lives. But there's so many of us that are in this world that if we show one another kindness, if we show one another what it's truly like to give without the expectation of receiving something back in return, we could do something really magical this Christmas season. I hope you enjoyed this brief history on Christmas, this brief origin story on Christmas. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. But until next time, my name's Derek. Take care. Merry Christmas.